Hey, this is Asteria, and Edron has joined me today. We're going to be discussing chapter 10.26 of The Wandering Inn. We're going to go ahead and get this after chapter discussion started. We're going to start off with general impressions. Edron, what were your thoughts about the chapter?
My thoughts about the chapter. Ooh, I think it was insane, really. We got again lots of character development for Mersha, and now we have two of them. My goodness, everybody speculated that we can or that she can pull over people, and now we got it confirmed. We got other things confirmed. Again, that it's more of a parallel universe and not just simulation. And that so many other things are possible now, that we are gonna get maybe Head Scratcher back, or somebody else from the Goblin troops. We got an almost dead Aaron somewhere. It's again, it was a short chapter, but full of like insane plot twists and developments, and I can't wait to where this is going. And hopefully, not something that will, I don't know, I want to say cheapen the death of some other characters, but it's Pirate has to be careful with that plot device, I think. But they haven't disappointed me yet, so no, they can do it.
We're going to get into discussion because that very topic, because that is the first discussion question, actually. So that's a great lead in a little bit after we hear general impressions from others. Edron, I'll go ahead and share my thoughts. So this chapter is continuing an arc that we've had for quite a few chapters, right? Continuing Mishra's adventures in the Palace of Fate. She's got these kind of reality breaking opportunities that she's been hemming and hawing about. And I think the big takeaway for me from this chapter is sort of what Edron said earlier, where she's growing as a character. I know that is a much complained about topic by myself and by other readers. I'm Mr. Nobody in particular, I think would have been really interesting to hear from this discussion. But it's all about like, hey, all this stuff has happened to her. Why isn't she maturing maybe as fast as one would expect in those situations? And I think this chapter was another great insight into the fact that she has been. But as much as we get point of view chapters from her, we don't really get a chance to kind of just have her alone with her thoughts. There's always something going on. And so I think this was a great insight that she has PTSD, that she has anxiety attacks, that she's trying to live up to her heroes, her mother, and all the characters that she's seen around her, or all the people that she's seen around her do all these different deeds. And it's a lot for a little kid. And I like this chapter that really kind of didn't dive into that, but it's going there. And I really enjoyed that aspect of this arc. Did you have any thoughts in response to that, Edron?
No, just that it's always mind-boggling that she is still a kid, and
yes.
She has done things, seen things that would break many adults.
Yes,
and that she's still able to smile at the end of the day is a miracle. And we have seen her now mature again, and that's impressive.
It's a lot. The other little thing that I liked that I saw Pirate slipping in a bit was different descriptions. There's a little bit of setting description, there's a little bit of character description, and it was nice to see that kind of slipped into different parts of the chapter that felt kind of very natural. So just more on like the writing side of things, that's something I always like to see, helps me visualize the characters a bit more in the settings and the surroundings, which are kind of the same thing, but I'm just emphasizing how much I enjoyed that aspect of the chapter, and I like to see it pop up. All right, so let's go ahead and hear from Bleach Soul. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I really like this chapter. I think Marsha is growing up, showing maturity and stuff, and it's great because even though people complain about her after all she saw and lived, she's still only 8-year-old. So it's great to see her like just be a kid for most of the time. Also, I thought the Eren scene was a bit brutal because of she was burned and stuff, and it was like hard to read that description with Eren. I don't like that Casigna is still alive. I just want her to just. I mean, like I want her to but just die and disappear or something because I think her role is done, and we had her like for 2 volumes and stuff, and I think she should have died as Solstice, but I'm not sure what's the purpose of her staying alive and stuff. Maybe she'll play bigger role next time, but not a big fan of that. Also, I'm not that big a fan of Marsha can bring others. It like everyone said, to it cheapen the death, but. Yeah, but I really enjoyed the chapter because it gives us like introspection and of Marsha and her thought process and her maturity, and preparation to help Rags because she really doing her best to help Rags. So that's really great. Like she got over. It's also an evidence that she really are over the tragedy of goblins killing her tribe, and yeah, and she has moved on. That was great to see. Thank you.
You had a favorite part from this chapter, something that stood out to you, and you also said the thing about cheapening the death of characters. I totally agree. Is there something else here? Just the first one. You had a favorite part of the chapter.
I mean, my favorite part's gotta be like Marsha talking to Marsha. But I'm not sure, how two Marshas from different realities can exist in the same world without consequence. But that's like that's probably will come up or something, or maybe there's no consequence or whatever. But yeah, I mean, Marsha talking to Marsha and explaining to each other, and then Marsha realized that she gonna sacrifice herself or something, because that's sad, like as shit.
Yeah.
But still,
Also a thing that really like kind of startled me a bit. I mean, the other Mercer, the thin one, is basically our Mercer with a few days difference. Like from experience or weeks, I don't know how long she was down there. And would our Mercer like say something like this? Like I would sacrifice myself, and would she do that?
yeah, that was dark for a kid, I gotta say.
Yes, that's what I mean. That's dark for a kid. When she realized she is a fake or something.
But no, I mean, yeah, I mean, she knows that she's not like the real Marsha. But I'm talking about that. That's not what I'm talking about when I'm saying my favorite. I'm saying my favorite, like Marsha, like conversation. Before all this turned to dark, and she sent her to the, because I want her, like to talk to her other selves and maybe learn and experience their experience and their realities and how to deal with stuff. It will help her grow. Yes, that's it. Thank you.
Great. So in response to that, Action Kermit says that they think we should reserve judgment about whether the palace cheapens the death of characters until we actually see previously dead characters return. We don't necessarily know if that will happen, and a couple people agree with emote responses. And then Sarah Bear says also they disagree about the fact that Mishra wanting to sacrifice himself being weird, since Mishra is a character that has wanted to sacrifice herself quite a lot. I would echo that the chapter did indeed kind of address that, I think, in a way where, right, the fake Mishra versus the real Mishra, the fake Mishra is saying she's one of many Mishras and all Mishras would make this decision. Whether or not that's, I forget the literary term for it, maybe point of view bias, limited point of view, where we have what the character's saying, but it's not necessarily true, right? We only have it from her perspective. And you've got to be careful with that because, enough changes take place. And even if you're dealing with two people from different universes that are, essentially the same person, part of what makes up a person are their experiences. And so we have a character that's been, starving in the Palace of Fates for quite a period of time, trying to figure out, any way possible to get out. It's mentioned that she's seen deep magics that may have given her a way to get out. So she's got a little bit more, maybe almost a little bit more experience with the Palace of Fates than the real one. So we'll have to see how that comes back up again. But let's go ahead and we'll circle to Mr. Europe after Mystical Pie. Mystical Pie says this was a great chapter. It really felt like the prose stepped up and was more consistent. They really have been enjoying the Mishra character development and honestly have no idea who or what Mishra will choose to bring into reality or what the consequences will be. And Mr. Europe, why don't you go ahead and wrap up general impressions?
Yeah, while I disagree with Bleach Soul and Edoron on the specifics, I also really enjoyed this little chapter. I thought it was great, the Mersha focus and the deep lore and stuff from various things. I, for example, think it's great that Casigna is still alive because it means Bethel can still be a villain properly rather than just someone who needs to die, and stuff like that. I think it's great that people are being brought through the gates. I think it's going to be very interesting, and Pirate gave themselves several limitations to that power. We'll get into that obviously in the questions more specifically, but I really, really hope that the two Mershas actually stick around. Personally, it's my my most hated sci-fi trope is a clone comes in for a little bit and they talk and they have a couple of the tropey normal things people issues people have with clones, and then one of them dies and it just goes back. And I hope we stick around with the terrible twins. I also think that it's the alternate Mershas dark moments were I didn't even blink at that. I thought it was perfectly in line with everything else because she hasn't just been sitting in the palace of trauma looking at different worlds and starving and thinking that she's gonna die down there. She was also shown that she's also a fake and she doesn't actually exist for real. I think everything was perfectly in line. I didn't at any point think she was acting in any way out of character from normal Mersha. But yeah, in general, I love the chapter, and my favorite part is probably also just the Mersha and Mersha conversation, because it was the highlight of of the whole the big emotional climax, I guess, to the chapter before the little GDI thing.
Edron, any thoughts? Looks like they had to step away for a second. Thank you for sharing that. I think that, like, I agree with the sci-fi sort of plot point of clones come in, do a little bit. Like, it's not one of my favorite tropes either, but one of the great things about Pirates writing is that they really do flip these sort of stereotypical trope, or like stereotypes of maybe different genres or tropes on their head, usually. And I think we're only kind of gearing up in this arc to sort of see how that trope is used and comes about. I don't think they're going to follow. My guess is that they wouldn't follow the standard use of that in their story. So it'll be kind of exciting to see how that plays out. Action Kermit says, Casigna needs to be alive because we haven't seen her suffer the doom of the Fairy King, that she will one day become a being of life and trickery, even as Oberon himself is doomed to die. He might not. Come on, guys. Doesn't need to be all doom and gloom when it comes to the fairies and horrible fates. All right. So we're going to move on from general impressions into the first discussion question, which you guys have all been kind of getting at already and super excited for. So this is a little bit of speculation. We've already seen this in play for some characters, this chapter even. But who or what do you think Mishra will be bringing into reality? And what impacts might that have? Do you think this is going to be a tragedy? Do you think this will be a comedy? Do you think this will be a good or a bad thing? What are your thoughts? Bleach Soul.
Yeah, as I mentioned before, I think she might bring Head Scratcher. I'm not sure if he will agree to go with her, but I think he's like the best possibility to help Rags with him being a lord and stuff. So probably she'll bring him. I'm not sure if she's gonna find some kind of a weapon or something, but I think it's mostly like Head Scratcher and maybe more, but I'm not sure. I don't want her to bring all the dead people like back, but Head Scratcher is a big possibility because of his lord status and because of he can help Rags. He's a goblin and he can help Rags the most. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm back.
You're back. No worries.
Yes,
glad you're back. We started the first discussion question, which was about who or what else might be brought into reality as one of the. I think we're down to 14 of these that she has left to use, which is quite a big number. But I guess that makes sense with the flowers being a little bit more able to reach adulthood or their final form, so to speak. And I'm sure some of them will be wasted or not used effectively in some manner to get that number down. Okay, so Mr. Europe, what are your thoughts?
I have two hopes and what I actually think might happen. Like, I think of the dead people to like bring back, so to speak, from this. I think the prime candidate would be Brunker, because he's the only one who doesn't have like a death, like a soul that's particularly been involved in the story. Unlike many of the others, like it would be pretty weird for another short hilt to come in while Numtongue still has a short hilt in his head, and stuff like that. Halrak is hanging around in Helsty, but I think primarily they will bring in like not the people who recently died. I don't think that will happen. But what I hope will happen is the first is for comedy reasons. I want her to bring back 17 more Mershas, and just have a council of various Mershas going around, and because I think that would be hilarious. But my primary wish, my most hopeful wish, above all else, is that Mersha will look for a door of Tessie if he wasn't a dumbass, and was a cool character, and then bring him into the world. And I really hope Pirate does that.
Is enough.
I think
Could
the
he-
thing to remember is. Oh, sorry, Adrian, you're cutting in and out a little bit.
Could Bronco really do anything, to be honest?
Okay, so
because he isn't the most powerful character in TWI, and he would be level. He died when he just turned knight, and could he do?
If she brings him in from a reality where he didn't die,
Yeah, then he
I
would
mean,
be
if he
strong.
goes back in time and obviously just brings him back. I mean, anything from back in time is pretty trash except original Maviola L. Everyone else has gotten stronger since then, so.
True.
The thing to remember with all these resurrections, though, is that they're not bringing back the characters we knew, right? And that was pointed out at the almost very end of the chapter, the last scene with the new Mishra, was that she was thinking about her life potentially, right? If she's able to stay, could Leonette handle 2 daughters? Twins running around, I could absolutely see that for comedic effect. That would be hilarious. But, even still, she was thinking back, I want to go back home. She wants to go back to her reality. She wants to sit down with her mom, her characters as she, or her friends as she knows them. And so any character that's brought back isn't
temporary.
Not even temporary. It's just not necessarily the character we know. And so if characters like that are permanent, I could see Pirate playing it more with maybe characters that could have been written elsewhere in the story that we didn't get a lot to see. I know everybody groans a little bit at the thought of one more character, but I would think about names of characters that could have had such potential, could have had, been such an intricate part of the story that maybe just didn't get the opportunity, and see bringing them in rather than versions of characters that have already died, perhaps.
Yeah, to clarify, because I don't think I said it, I don't actually think any character is going to be brought back fully, like as the character we know. It's going, if other people that we know are brought back, it's going to be as very alternate versions of themselves.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. That's what I'm saying is I wonder if that will end up being considered, and she'll pull around, like, how hurtful would it be, right, if she were to not resurrect, but to pull into reality another Moor, right? The more she knows, her relationship with him was so complex, right, and so meaningful to her. If she was to bring in another Moor, it's not going to be the same. So I'm curious as to see, how she'll end up using the flowers. All right, let's move on to the next person. I believe, Mr. Europe, sorry, was it you or Sarah Bear?
I just talked.
Okay, so Sarah Bear, you're up.
I know Edgequarter is probably a definitive answer because we saw Marsha going back to that door. So we can assume it's someone from that dimension, and with the POV that Edgequarter got, and bizarrely replaced Pirate role. I don't know why a Pirate was forgotten from Root Part 5, but okay, that's the deal with that. I think it's the guaranteed answer, but I don't think he's going to be the only one that's going to be grabbed. I don't know who else. I hope it's someone extremely powerful because Esquarter alone is not going to solve all of that. So yeah, I have a bet. Maybe it's probably one of the ghosts, one of the dead people that Aaron met and somehow survive or whatever. Maybe someone we. It's a bit theorized, and I think I agree with that. That someone we don't want to cross the door, like Bedavia or a renegade Naravia comes out and find a way to exit the Palace of Fate. I think it's a big possibility. But yeah, I think on the theory that Bunker, Night, Night, the Antinium, and all of that, I think that's a dead theory because even with that, in that span of time, I don't think they will reach that high of a level. And if we take into account attachment for Barcha, I think Zell is a possibility if there's a dimension, if he's alive somewhere, because Zell is really strong. So yeah, that's
Also,
all.
is there a reality where Zell?
Where Zell survive, it's a possibility. Maybe in that reality, you know how the breastplate work, but we don't. We don't know. So yeah, that's what all I wanted to say.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I almost wonder if she might go after bigger names, historical names, if she ends up thinking strategically about this, or she's more pushed to act from emotion, right? As she did this chapter by bringing in the other Mishra and saving her from being locked into the Palace of Fates potentially forever. Curious to sort of see how that goes down. Liquid Ender says that they hope that one of the ones brought back will be Knight from the chess club. Mystical Pie says they feel like Head Scratcher is the obvious choice from this chapter, but would be, such a consequential choice. They imagine Mishra will have to convince whoever she brings over to cross the boundary, which will alleviate some of the moral quandaries. But from the descriptions we've gotten of Head Scratcher, for example, they can't believe how they would function in reality. They're just completely different people used to operating in completely different worlds. Yeah, I think that's going to be the real rub, right? They're different people. They may bear the same name, but they're different people. And that is going to be a hard barrier to potentially overcome. Kanea says, a lot of things can happen here. Anyone brought back would probably want to go back after helping if they survive, but they could be stuck either by the Palace of Fates, being patched out by the system, or requiring fairy routes to go back and running out of them. They themselves could also be patched out of reality. Even if one or more of them ends up remaining here, it would be a copy, and it would cause problems if some of them are already set up to come back in some way in a Hellist arc. In their view, almost anything can work as long as it's well thought and well written. We can only wait and see. Red Ink Quill, you want to wrap us up on this discussion topic?
Yeah, sure. I think that Mersha will bring back people that she feels sentimental about, and probably the most powerful person she feels sentimental about might be Shetta, the Harpy Queen that owns the skill herself. She's been talking to her. She might feel bad and bring her back. So like that's a historical name, like you were talking about. Who would she bring back? I think that if she opens more Mersha doors, she's going to bring more Mershas back, just what's going to happen, I think that Head Scratcher is an obvious choice. Otherwise, we wouldn't have gotten such a big POV from him this chapter. I missed the first thing, what I thought about the chapter. I just want to say Casigna scared the shit out of me this chapter. Just wanted to say that. All right. Yeah.
No, thanks. That was a absolutely disturbing image, but echoes a lot of like old mythology. And I hope the artists take that scene and run with it, especially for next year's Halloween. Mafia Hamster, any thoughts?
Not right now, no.
All right. So so interesting to see where this goes. I think one character that might be interesting that might come up potentially would be the Gambler of Fates, especially with the Rags versus Nears showdown potentially occurring. But we'll just have to see. So, Edron, did you have the next discussion question that you wanted to bring up?
Yes.
All right, so while you do that, I will read off a last general impression from Oshi. Oshi said that Pirates going down the path of Doctor Who, and that can be great. This wild, out-of-the-universe kind of story, no set rules, anything is possible. It can be a very beautiful story. The problem, however, for them is that this leads to kinds of stories that you have to have worked to ground in an emotional center. And that emotional center at present is Mishra. Mishra has spent the better part of a few volumes being a kid, and the author has emphasized that to a great degree. So it makes it hard for her as a character to connect to people on this at a more dramatic level. They're reminded of that scene from the Knoll Moot where Mishra is giving a speech. It's supposed to be dramatic, and yet it comes off as unearned and more than a little flat. That was when she was running around on that like super perfection Knoll's back and was wearing the crab hat or something or that's where the crab hat emote came from. And I do remember that scene, and it did have that reaction from readers. However, Oshii continues to say that this time is better because there's more buildup and more of an attempt to grow the emotional center, but it's a tricky stretch. Not only will Pirate not sure if Pirate will pull it off, but they'll definitely lose people along the way who won't be able to connect to it. The universality of Mishra's emotions and motivations is there on paper, but for Oshii, it's not quite there emotionally. The arc hurts for it. Hopefully, whatever they have left balances out and sticks landing. Okay, so that's another final general impression from readers. What is your discussion topic that you have chosen? Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Your thoughts on the multi-Mersha will Mersha break the palace fate? So my thoughts on that question, having two characters, I mean GDI also like bugged out a little bit or not, and my thoughts on the two characters in one setting, I'm not sure. For one point, I'm kind of hyped because we get the opportunity to see now a live actual what if scenario play out on the canon, on the canon verse, on the main universe, and on the other hand, the decision to take another Mersha, for what reason? I mean, she on one hand she got a lot of character development. On the other hand, she took another Mersha who really can. What can both of them do to help? If what can two Mershas do what one couldn't? Except like play Freaky Friday or play a movie trope. So that's why I'm a bit confused that she took another Mersha just because like of emotional or not rational thinking. If maybe I'm not explaining it really good, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I think it does sort of come down to like what are character motivations, and maybe a lot of what this is right. You have to think about she's acting potentially in the moment. She's got a lot riding on her. There's anxiety, there's stress, there's like what ifs. And then there's just this base sort of morality of like she remembers being left. She remembers being abandoned, and she was waiting for people to come and save her. And now she's finally an opportunity where the roles are reversed. And she doesn't want to leave anyone behind, right?
True.
So she's not necessarily thinking entirely strategically. And I think understanding her history, that makes sense.
It's true. It's true. But
go ahead.
Oh yeah. No, just want to say I'm excited what the others have to say about it.
Yeah, and I just want to correct myself earlier, guys. I'm sorry. I said Rags versus Nears. I meant the Titan. It's a little late for me. My apologies. So the Rags versus the Titan showdown, not Rags versus Nears. My apologies on that. That would be interesting. Those two going against each other. All right, Red Ink Quill, you're up.
Yeah, I don't question at all why Mersha did it. We are emotional creatures. We're not really rational ones. I think maybe if we were robots, we'd be kind of rational, but even AI is trained on human output, so it's more emotional. It's based on emotional, factual data. So, like, I don't really question that. I think Mersha just stepping into the Palace of Fates in general is going to break it once the GDI comes back. Because, like, basically the GDI that's running right now is the oldest version of it. So anyone that levels up during this period is not getting the better skills, the better classes. It's getting very old things, or maybe stuff that's already been created. Nothing's new is being produced. So I think that Mersha finding the Palace of Fates, breaking into it, probably broke it in some way. I don't know how the GDI would fix it unless it just destroyed the Palace of Fates, you know? Because it can't interact with the fairy flowers, it doesn't seem like. So I don't think Mersha, maybe Mersha breaking more people into this reality will exacerbate the problem, but she already did it, It's just like the consequences haven't arrived yet, I feel like. We don't know what's going to happen. Like, basically what Mersha is doing is basically in line. It's kind of similar to what Casigna did by resurrecting people. This is a power that is mythical, basically. We've only seen one scroll in the world that could resurrect people. And then Casigna did it to, the sister of Bethel. So I think that there's going to be huge consequences to this. Everyone's going to be wanting their loved one to come back when they find out about this. It's not going to go unnoticed, especially with all the attention on the end that dead people are coming back to life, seemingly. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Edron, any thoughts?
Nope.
All right. So Kinea says if we end up having two of the same character long term, they would probably end up separated and develop differently. It could be a bit like Trey and Terrace. Terry, how do you never don't know how to pronounce her name. No, Trey and Terry, the twins.
All right. Yeah.
That were difficult to tell apart at the beginning, but ended up very different. As long as it is done with care, it can work in their opinion. If we go that route. Mr. Europe, you are up.
I definitely hope they're not split up and they don't develop different. I want them to be together and to do their things. And eventually, of course, they're going to be caught out doing it. But for now, I just want them to keep doing their Freaky Friday stuff, trying to switch back and forth, and I want them to deal with the fact that they're only getting half as many cookies. That's the kind of plotline I want. And stuff like that. And we have the more darker mind of the Mershalter and the normal Mersha trying to still be more of a kid, and them switching out. I think it'll be great, and it should continue like that. They already have different enough mentalities, I think, and I think this is just a great story opportunity, and Pirate should continue with it. And regarding the Palace of Fates, I mean, we'll get to that in a later question, I think, but I don't think there's any danger of anything breaking. The danger is that what will happen when GDI comes back and just sees the absolute amount of fuckery that's been going on.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting reaction to see how that plays out. There's definitely going to be long-term consequences. That is for sure. Whether they're good or bad, we're going to just have to see. Sarah Bear, you're up.
One thing that I find it interesting is from the point of view of the fake Marsha, we know that she will die there alone, which means that Erin never get the skill. So will the skill truly break? Will the timeline really change that much? I'm not sure about that. The multi-Marsha, as Mr. Europe said, is really fun. I want them to do shenanigans with each other, to interact, and all of that stuff. It'll be a fun chapter, or fun scene. But yeah, the Palace of Fate, I think it will be broken or completely removed, or be done in a way that no one will access it later, like Erin, since she can't get it with the garden line. Or someone else. Maybe the GDI will truly learn how the Fae work, how they exist, and all of that stuff, and will finally do stuff to deal with the flower and will interact with all the portion that Salis did and all of that stuff. So yeah, I don't think Marsha will break it. It's more that GDI will realize that it got some problem.
Absolutely. Mafia Hamster, any thoughts?
I'm thinking about what you just said, but no, not right now.
Okay. All right. So thanks for sharing and responding, guys. If there's any more responses coming in, I'll read out those aloud and we'll respond to them as they come in. But we're going to move on to a different discussion question now. So this is a little bit of a change of pace from the sort of speculating questions and reaction questions that we've been looking at so far this discussion. We've mentioned emotion a couple times. We've mentioned logic versus, we've gotten into this discussion of whether characters should be rational or they should be emotional, especially when facing all these crises. So on that, well, maybe not on that note, but kind of on a segue from that, the next discussion question is this. So what scene or scenes this chapter evoked the most emotion out of you? Why? Like, what really hit you? What was like, yeah, man, this is going to stick with me? And why do you think that was the case? Or were there, was there a scene or were there scenes that you wanted more of an emotional hit where you felt like, okay, like this is important and I really want to connect with this, but maybe there was something holding you back, whether maybe it was a hang up with the character or it just, you were trying to puzzle out what was happening, or just it didn't kind of like, you wasn't able to resonate with you for some reason. I'm interested to see what you guys are thinking along these lines. Edron, did you have any scenes? We talked about scenes that stood out to you, but was there something that kind of was a gut punch for you, or maybe not?
I think bit of a gut punch was when we saw Almost Dead. I just love Erin to pieces, and seeing her basically dying because she is not gonna survive that trip. It's basically said that she will die on that boat. And that hit hard, and it probably wasn't even such a big deal, but when it was described how Mersha isn't that happy-go-lucky girl all the time, that she still has hookups, and she still stares out of the window sometimes and starts like having a tear in her eyes, having these stares. To realize that she is a bit like kaput inside still made me look back to many of these other chapters and like think, why are you so harsh to her? I can still remember the Mercer versus Nanette debate. And I always said that Mercer is a brat. And now thinking back about it, to really get the perspective what she has been through, that she still has so many scars, and maybe I was a bit too harsh to her in the past. That's a realization that hit hard for me personally.
All right. I think one of the touching moments that was quite sad was there was this, I forget which part of the chapter it was, but there's this moment, right, that reveals that in these quiet moments, right, she's thinking of the past and people whom she's lost, and she's doing actions that she remembers them doing, right? More eating a sandwich, or Halrek kind of looming and just looking around a bit. And, she's mimicking the actions of those that she was close to that are no longer with her. And that's one form of grief that we don't necessarily, I think it's actually quite common, but we don't necessarily, I can't recall of too many instances where it's played out with kind of younger characters in different stories. And so I like how Pirate has sort of taken on all these different aspects of grief and coping with situations outside of their control for different characters. And I think it's really interesting how we're seeing Mishras develop, right? How the ghosts don't literally walk with her, but they still kind of do in the actions, right, that she takes. And that if someone who has lost someone, and especially maybe someone that they both mutually know, like looks at her and really, really looks, they'll actually recognize her mimicking, family or friends that have passed in what they've done before. So I thought that was really good. A scene for me that I wanted more of a punch would have been the goddesses devouring their third. Like, Pirate does horror and the macabre so well. We know that, right? Man, that scene with Skinner was one of the first ones that really pulled people into the Wandering Inn. Everybody talks about it. And that scene with the goddesses just starting to devour each other that's where I could have seen that language coming out again and coming into play. And I felt like it was almost not glossed over, but didn't quite have the same punch as I remember some of the more horrific scenes in The Wandering Inn from past chapters. And I don't know if that was just, there's so much to this arc that we just got to get going, or if it was because it was a stylistic choice because we're reviewing the scene from the perspective of the grand design, and the grand design is a little bit more clinical, right, in how it views things and how it deals with things, in which case it would make sense, right, that you're not going to have all the descriptive language because it's from the grand design's point of view. Or rather than like a third person author kind of thing where we're just getting everything.
I can understand what you mean. That was a moment that could have been the finale of a chapter. That could have been the moment that was built up and like ended up in this. And for that, it was just like again, like you said, not thrown in, but maybe just a little bit. I know what you mean. That could have been a much more bigger and scarier moment. The right build up.
Right, they think that she's dead. She's gone. She's fading out into the remnants, and now suddenly, like, she's coming back. Right, it's not 3 in 1. The 2 in 1 are coming back, and I feel like that reveal could have been played up a bit more. But once again, as it's written, it makes sense from the grand design's perspective, where you kind of have this see all, know all kind of being running around. So I'm interested to see what people think in that if they decide to respond to that. But also eager to hear from other people about this question. Red Ink Quill, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the biggest gut punch was probably the Casigna not being dead. Um, when I was a child, I would have like some nightmares about running away from something and thinking I lost it, and then it was still there chasing me. And in this story, I thought Casigna's gone, she's dead. She was destroyed. She's lost everything. She's gonna wither away and die. She's not gonna be in the story anymore. And then this just like kind of was very visceral for me. Like continuing like unstoppable evil, That's what it seemed like to me. And it was also kind of horrific, self-cannibalizing themselves. Did it kind of seem like that the maiden was eating the mother and then the crone was eating the maiden, or were they both eating the mother?
They were both eating the mother, but the language was kind of clunky there.
I thought
at least for me,
it seemed like I think the crone was actually eating both of them because the crone always survives.
It's because when they said the crone was eating the daughter and the maiden was eating the mother, right? The mother is the daughter of the crone, but the mother of the maiden.
Oh, okay. Well,
so it was a very
right.
like
I understand.
Yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay. I was, that was just really like hard. Also, it struck me when Mersha was eating the hamburger in tiny bites. And then fucking Callison is like, "Oh man, I made a really good hamburger this time." Right? Wasn't that funny? But also like kind of poignant. I really liked that. The Aaron thing, it didn't strike me so much because she kept on referring to herself as fake. So in that wasn't as striking. Because I wasn't invested in someone that was referring to themselves as fake, as the author was referring to them as fake, didn't strike me as much. The head scratcher thing was his whole story was kind of crazy. Like, just the happiness of that world where the only things that really changed was that the goblins, all the Red Fang 5 lived, just how much could have changed in that, Head Scratcher ended up chasing away Bellavere, so that way Nears didn't get moved across the continents. It's just really quite amazing, what a difference that made. Maybe when Rabbit Eater comes back to Israel, we might see some similar effects, but I don't see him forming the coalition that Head Scratcher was able to do in his reality. Yeah, those are the things that struck me.
I'll just add on to that I absolutely agree. The head scratcher scene hit. I was like, can I want to read that story? Can we jump into that? Like, can I just keep reading there?
It kind of seems like Haradaba was reading AO3 and was like, I kind of want to do that myself.
Fan fiction in their own fiction.
Yeah. Isn't that what she did?
Yes, they did. They absolutely did. And then another one what you say brings to mind is that whole section where we were touching base with the future Mishra again, who's the adventurer and trying to resurrect Aaron.
That was tough.
I want to read that story too. I was like, wait, I like this character. I love this drive. Like,
I don't know if that had happened in this story, I would have dropped the story. I did drop the story for a while when Aaron died. I was like, I'll come back to this when she comes back to life. If it had gone to that, time skip 10 years or whatever, I would have been really upset.
But still, right, as it's being written out right now, I agree with you. Like, I think that was the possibility that readers talked about, especially when Pirate teased that one chapter on April Fools that did time skip forward. And like, right, there's so much emotion and detail packed into that one scene, and I'm trying to think of like why it really works for me, and I just think it's because the characters' drives and their emotions just resonate, and it comes through that this Mishra is just upset, she's angry, she's frustrated, she feels like everyone's given up, and she's like, hold on, I have a family member who's basically in a like coma, we're gonna wake her up, we're gonna bring her back. What the hell's wrong with you? Why have you all given up? And you can just feel her frustration, and it just starts to suck you in. And I'm like, that's what I want. And
this was like when I was actually very disappointed when I saw that the Patreon said it's like 16,000 words, which is like a fantastic length of words for any other author. But for this, I thought this arc was gonna like have a lot of stuff going on. The conflict was going to happen. That's what I thought was going to happen in this chapter. So when I saw 16,000 words, I was initially disappointed. But then I read it and I was like, yo, what the hell is this banger? How did you fit all this in here?
I think this chapter did a really good job of moving from scene to scene. I like that. I think like the door-to-door setup was done quite well. I enjoyed that.
Yeah. I think part of taking these longer breaks, writing less, has actually improved the quality pretty significantly.
Yep.
I initially was like, oh no, I'm going to be getting less wandering in. It's going to be, worse for me. But I'll support her because, I want this author to be happy. But I think it actually has improved the story quality, which is important for the posterity of the story, rather than like, the immediate being constant in time, waiting for more chapters kind of thing, but like the posterity on how well the story will hold up over decades or maybe even longer. I think it'll really improve it. I wonder if she'll ever go back and do some similar things to the earlier parts of the book, like really rewrite them with the editing and how she's becoming such a better author.
They have been actually.
Yeah. I haven't been reading the Kindle editions really. I've been buying them, but I haven't been reading them.
They I think it was a blog post, but the changes do make it up to the website. But I mean, you'd have to go back and start from the beginning. But the edits that happen to the Kindle do make it onto the website, I think.
Okay. Yeah, I've been thinking about like going back and rereading this story because I'm actually kind of foggy in what happened early on.
So long.
Yeah, it's been like 8 years, It's been a minute,
Yeah.
It's just tough. It's just 10 plus million words. It's nothing.
Yeah, like
I think we're at 11 or 12 now.
We're at 12, 13, something like that. No other.
I think we're in the high 13s now.
Yeah,
really?
It's pretty incredible, actually. Pretty incredible.
You always go ahead.
I'm just happy to be living in this time period when a story like this is coming out. Like, especially since like everything is moving towards people don't read as much, right? Because they either don't read books, they get tired, they don't know how to read that well. But like, you would think that with these kinds of movements in the literary world, that stuff like this wouldn't be coming out, but it is, and it's amazing, So I'm just very thankful for that.
I find fantasy readers often complain about the fact that authors don't write the whole story. We start in the middle or after the catastrophe that occurred 300 years ago.
Yeah.
Hey, Pirate's writing from day one.
Yeah,
thing.
Pirate heard show don't tell and was like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. She took that literally,
All right. So from Mystical Pie, they said that they loved the character work with Mishra at the beginning of the chapter. It wasn't exactly new information, but the way it was written was poignant. They also enjoyed the conversations Mishra had with dying Aaron and Mishra too, and they're both emotional crutches for Mishra in a way. The scene with Consigna didn't hit as well for them, but to be honest, almost none of the god stuff has really hit well for them in The Wandering Inn. There's something about the prose that when Pava writes about the gods that becomes more I cannot pronounce this word, I'm so sorry.
Obfuscated.
There you go.
Yeah.
Flunky. They can't quite put it into words. It almost seems like Pirate is trying to make every scene with them feel more grand or archaic. Maybe epic? Archaic is... Yeah, I can see where you're going with that. Anyway, it just never works for them, though. All the narration and dialogue in those scenes tends to fall flat. Okay, so that's Mystical Pie, and then Action Kermit says, if the palace is a fanfic skill, then Isame should get it. Yes, I agree. All right, any other thoughts about this question? Mafia Hamster,
Not
any
from me.
insight? All right, then you want to choose the last discussion question?
Oh, you can do it.
Go for it.
I have to walk to my
Okay.
PC there. You can take the last question.
Great. Well, let's just open this up. Is there anything in the chapter that we didn't talk about, that we haven't discussed, that you guys really want to share your opinion about? I know we tend to do that in general impressions, but we've gotten through about kind of most of the discussion questions informally or formally. So yeah, what else is there, guys? What did we not talk about? What opinions did you not get to share? I want to hear them. Bring it on. Let's go. Sarah Bear, you go ahead and start us off.
I mentioned it earlier, but I don't know if it's either Parrot is either doing another alternative reality, or they forgot something. But in the Head Scratcher universe, where Head Scratcher is a Goblin Lord, Pirate is supposed to be the one that is leading the tribe, while Wag is a student. So I'm like, either it's a new reality, either Parrot forgot, either I don't know how to deal about that. Because there's I think I remember something else, and I think that that universe that's a bit weird. Oh yeah, Short Haired nickname was supposed to be Scarlet Blade, and this one it's Sir Buckshead. So I don't know if it's a alternative reality or Pirate forgot, or I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see maybe if that gets a mention. I almost kind of felt like those little details were just like Pirate probably had 50 million different alternatives for our characters.
Mm-hmm.
And I almost wonder if like some of what we're reading in this arc is like ideas that didn't make it into the main story, or alternatives, or what ifs. And it's just kind of cool to see. But yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see. Samu, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, I mean, it was talked about somewhat, but that the thing that Mersha is now, I think, probably the one person outside of goblins that understands goblin lords the best is kind of crazy to me. Like, even Aaron. I mean, Aaron was on the way to transforming into a goblin lord, but Mersha now had the whole perspective of a goblin lord, and I think, yeah, I'm in that sense, she's really more than any other character. She's really stepping into Aaron's shoes, because if there's one theme that we've seen with Aaron, is the goblin theme among all the others, so for sure. But I think this really, I think the whole garden stuff, that skill, I think is really also related to Erin's willingness to take care of goblins, and now Mersha being the one who steps in on that front for her, while all the others, Nanette does her witch stuff, which she thinks is for standing in for Aaron 2. Lionette runs the inn. All the other inn characters also do their stuff. Ishkur is doing more stuff than he usually does. At least I think so in Volume 10. And I think it's really telling that Mersha is taking over the goblin plots for now around Israel. And yeah, I think that's kind of a nice thing to see. And also, I think Mersha is the one person who fits the most for that, even if all the others have more agency in some way, in terms of being older and whatnot. But yeah, all this thing that Mersha knows so much about goblins now, and that she's like leagues ahead compared to others, is really cool, I think.
Really, thank you for sharing your opinion. Reddit Quill, you are up.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate that this was a fantastic chapter, even though it wasn't like the normal length of a weekly chapter. I guess we are getting the Tuesday chapter as well, which is going to be, wow, return to form. I just really liked it. I really liked Mersha we're getting more into her head, seeing what she would do with things, seeing how much responsibility she's taking on. Really, really loved that. I think that Lionette would have fucked this up, if she had the power to bring people back to life. She would have gone more for power or something, power, wealth or something, than sentimentality. But you got to remember that the people you bring back, if they don't have any sentimental reasons to work with you, then they're not going to be helpful at all, and they're just going to add more chaos to the world. So I think Marsh is making the right choice here. I think maybe she can get Ishkur to ask questions about too. But really, really like this. Really like the chapter.
Awesome. All right. So on that note, unless there are any additional thoughts about this chapter, we will go ahead and wrap up the after chapter discussion, the recorded portion. Thank you guys so much for joining myself and Edron/Mafia Hamster for today's chapter discussion. Hope to see you guys next time. And I agree that the splitting of the content is interesting for our next upcoming chapter, which is going to be on Tuesday, a return to form. So we'll have to see why that decision was made and what comes of it. All right, guys, enjoy and see you later in the week for the discussion of the next chapter.